What is going on, Zilla Fantasy Elite Nation? This is Todd Zilla here coming at you with a Thursday night football special. Just fresh off of work, so we're going to get this out for you to enjoy and hopefully make the right decisions for your lineups on this Thursday night. Really, we're going to be using this video to kind of hopefully teach everybody who's watching this, a lot of new subscribers, teach people how to use this and utilize the adjusted line play report to their advantage and how to kind of assess this and think about it. Maybe you look at it a little bit differently than I do. More power to you that you can maybe look at these and come up with a better solution than what I've seen from this report. Anyway, we're going to try to teach a little bit on this particular Thursday night football session so you can not only utilize this information for your DFS lineups today in this island matchup, but also maybe make those correct start-sit decisions. Again, DFS on that main slate, prop bets. This is very good for prop bets as well. Let's get into it. Let's teach you how to go over this, and hopefully we can win some money tonight on the island game. Again, I haven't looked at the prices. We're just going to go over this in terms of what the adjusted line play is saying. So, Vegas game total 40.5. This was bet up from 39.5 earlier this week. The line, New Orleans 2-point favorites. This previously was 1-point favorite for New Orleans, so a little bit of higher score. That whole Vegas game total basically going to New Orleans' favor as they went up as 2-point home favorites rather than a 1-point home favorite going into this game. Kind of interesting seeing that they're favorites, but I think this does have to do at least the betting with Trevor Lawrence being injured going into this game and potentially not playing in this matchup, which is probably why we've seen the betting go the way it has during the week. Either way, pretty low game total. Take that into consideration. If they're not going to be a lot of points scored, defenses always come into play for these island games. Getting into the individual teams, 21.25 team implied total for New Orleans, 19.25 for Jacksonville. Again, they're projecting a close game here, but low scoring. So, what do we always look at first? It's the away team. This is Jacksonville. We're going to look at offensive pass protection and then offensive run blocking and see how it stacks up compared to the opposing defense's pass rush and the opposing defense's run stopping ability. Based on what those look like, and kind of project a game flow and what the game might look like in this particular matchup. So getting into that offensive pass protection from Jacksonville side, it's pretty even. They're number 19 overall. New Orleans, number 23 at the defensive pass rush. Getting into the DVOA aspects on the pass, number 10 for Jacksonville, number 7 for New Orleans. Again, this is pretty even. Really, when it's even like this, you can consider it's almost a stalemate on the pass blocking side. Defense isn't overwhelming. Offensive line isn't overwhelming, giving tons of time. Pretty even. In those scenarios, it's about an average amount of time to pass, but we've really seen the studs who are able to overcome the offensive line and defensive line things. They really shine in these particular scenarios where it is even like this. So that's kind of how we look at the offensive pass protection. It's not giving us a ton of info, so we'll switch over to the run blocking side, and we see that Jacksonville is number 27 in run blocking, New Orleans number 9 in stopping the run. The DVOA is much closer there at 14 and 13. So what this is indicating is Jacksonville's offensive line is not very good at run blocking. New Orleans' run stopping is pretty good on the defensive line front. Again, DVOA is almost, you can kind of think of it as efficiency or fantasy output to an extent. Pretty middle of the pack for both of those teams there, pretty even. Taking everything into consideration, this is telling me, hey, the run game's probably going to be a little bit weak. They're not going to be super good at moving the ball efficiently. They're probably not going to be able to sustain drives if they can't run the ball very well. They're going to be more consistently behind the chains, especially when you take into consideration it's even or neutral in the pass game. So how is Jacksonville going to move the ball? It's likely going to be via the air, but we also have to take into consideration Trevor Lawrence is coming into this game injured, right? So That needs to be taken into consideration. Are they building the game plan in a short week with him being limited? Most likely. So they're probably going to try to run the ball a little bit more than pass it. It's just probably not going to be super effective based on what we see here. So what that's telling me, giving me kind of some red flags in terms of Jacksonville's offense in this game. Hey, if they're not running the ball very well, and that's kind of how they're game planning, they might not be super efficient on offense. You're, kind of in the back of your mind thinking maybe I don't want a ton of players in this island matchup from the Jacksonville side based on this. Just kind of keeping that in mind. So Travis Etienne, some red flags there. Probably not going to be super effective. The pass game seems like it's going to be okay. It's pretty neutral. They do have Christian Kirk. They have Evan Ingram. They have Calvin Ridley, who are all pretty decent in their own right. So I'd expect them to be okay in this particular matchup if Jacksonville is passing. Again, their game plan might be a little bit different on a short week coming off the 2 previous weeks in London. Now they're a short week in New Orleans. Maybe they keep the same game plan that they've had the past couple of weeks. Who knows? But that does need to be taken into consideration for this matchup. Just seems like pass game for Jacksonville will be a little bit better than the run game, but they might be trying to run the ball a bunch. So that's the Jacksonville side. Let's get into the New Orleans side. We're looking at the pass protection here. So New Orleans 24, Jacksonville 28 on the defensive pass rush. Then getting into the DVOA side, New Orleans 19, Jacksonville 10. This is pretty even. The DVOA side, a little bit bigger of a gap there in the favor of Jacksonville. But again, New Orleans pass protection not very good. Jacksonville pass rush also not very good. So New Orleans might find themselves with a little bit more time than they might be used to. So they're probably used to not having a ton of time if they're already in the red. But Jacksonville comes in as a team who's also in the red. So New Orleans might have a little bit more time than they're used to. That could be particularly good for Chris Olave, as he is one of the best wide receivers in the league in terms of air yards. I think he's only behind Tyreek Hill currently in terms of air yards so far through the first 6 weeks. Shaping up for me to say, hey, if they had a little bit more time to throw, Derek Carr, that shoulder injury, 2 weeks, 3 weeks in the window now, maybe they can open up these pass attempts and get them in Chris Olave's way. So he's an interesting play in this particular matchup. So pretty even here. Nothing really to write home about. Studs eat. Michael Thomas, probably a little past the stud stage in his career, but Chris Olave certainly in that realm. Getting into the run blocking, New Orleans number 11, pretty solid, but Jacksonville third in stopping the run. The DVOA even worse. New Orleans 19, Jacksonville 6. This is suggesting that New Orleans is also probably going to struggle running the ball. Kind of a red flag for Alvin Kamara, especially Jamal Williams being more of that grinder back. He's off the list in terms of people, unless you think if he's super cheap. Be my guest, he certainly could score a touchdown if New Orleans gets on the goal line. They stick him in there. He's certainly capable of a touchdown. If he's really mid-range price, 3,000, 4,000 or more, he's going to be off my list in terms of island game and not somebody that I'm starting at all in seasonal leagues. And if he's got a prop bet out there of like 18 yards, 20 yards, I would be betting the under on that in terms of prop bets. So New Orleans probably not going to be very effective running the ball. They're going to be a little bit better passing the ball, which means kind of both of these scenarios. Run game is going to struggle. Pass game is probably where they're going to move the ball a little bit more, especially if they're struggling on the run game and they're getting themselves into longer scenarios. Go see who of these pass-catching options on New Orleans or Jacksonville are really good in those long down and distance scenarios. They're probably going to have a better game this week. I don't know that off the top of my head. We'll have to head to Fantasy Life and figure that out. But that's how I'm going to be looking at this game, attacking this island game, is probably through that pass game, considering it is such a low score, and it looks like these defenses will do okay, and the run game is going to struggle. I'm assuming there's going to be quite a few field goals in this particular matchup, so I'm probably going to have a kicker on one of these teams going. Just based off of this, it seems like New Orleans' run game isn't quite as stacked against them. They are favored. They are the home team. Jacksonville coming off of London, 2 straight weeks, short week here. New Orleans defense might be able to compensate. If New Orleans is leading, their kicker getting into field goal range might get, the 3 or 4 field goal attempts here to put your island game team over the top. That's kind of how I am looking at these defenses probably in play as well in terms of this island matchup. Getting into the pace of play, looking at Jacksonville, they're kind of middle of the pack in terms of overall pace of play on their offense. When they're in neutral situations, they're top 7. When they're leading, they're top 8. When the score is within 6 points on offense, they're in the top 20, but below average there. And same if they're trailing by 7 or more points, they are below average in terms of their pace of play compared to the rest of the league. New Orleans, pretty green here, so 9 in overall pace of play on offense, pretty good. 5th in offensive neutral situations, which this game is projecting out that way. So New Orleans number 5, Jacksonville number 7. There's likely a lot of plays that are going to be ran. Even if it's a 3 and out, they're probably going to be quick. So keep that in mind. New Orleans, though, does slow down when they're leading. So offensive pace of play when they're leading, they're 24th. When it's within 6 points, which this is projecting, they are top 8. And then when they're trailing by 7 or more points, which is possible, Jacksonville's a solid team. They are quick there, number 6 in the league when they're trailing by 7 or more points. So that's kind of a look in terms of the Thursday night football. I don't know the prices, but I'm going to do some investigation on my Fantasy Life or fantasylife.com to see which one of these wide receivers or pass catching options on these teams is being favored in those longer down and distance scenarios. They're probably going to get a few extra targets in this particular matchup. On the New Orleans side, if you're a little bit worried about that pass protection failing against Jacksonville, based off of this DVOA aspect, you could certainly look at Alvin Kamara getting some dump offs, or the tight ends there. I don't know who it's going to be playing. It's for sure Taysom Hill in there, but Juwan Johnson, Troutman, actually he left, but Jimmy Graham's getting some snaps in there, and Foster Moreau. So it's kind of a crowded tight end depth chart there, but certainly if you feel like they're going to be under duress and getting these quick throws off, you can go that route. But I think it's going to be more, New Orleans is going to have a little bit more time than they're used to, which is going to benefit Chris Olave the most. Based on this matchup, I don't think the quarterbacks are going to be particularly great. I'm probably going to either have a defense or a kicker, or based off of this information, I'm going to go the route of Chris Olave or one of these Jacksonville pass catchers as my captain option for this particular island slate. Anyway, hopefully you learned a little bit something in regards to the adjusted line play report, how you go about reading these, what the information all means, and how you can kind of correlate that into a projected game outcome for this particular matchup. Obviously, I go through the entire main slate and the Sunday night and Monday night games on Saturday, but wanted to get this video out specifically for Thursday night football, and also to let you know, kind of as an instructional video, how to handle the adjusted line play report when you see those videos, especially for all those new subscribers that have come on recently. Up about 50% here in the last 6 or 7 months on this channel. So really appreciate all the new viewers. Hopefully you're learning some stuff here and we're winning some money together. Have a good one. Thanks for viewing. And if you're new and haven't subscribed yet, hit that subscribe button. We're dominating here in the fantasy streets. So have a good one. Bye.